Story time: why my biological mom is not invited to my wedding. I'm 28 years old, engaged to the love of my life, and getting married in a few weeks. This should be the happiest time of my life. But of course, my biological mother had to make it about her. Backstory time. My parents split when I was really young. My dad wasn't perfect, but he tried. He thought leaving me with my mom was the safer choice. She promised him she'd take care of me. He believed her. But the truth? She never did.
She partied.
She chased boyfriends. She'd vanish for days, sometimes weeks. I'd sit by the window waiting, hoping she'd come back, hungry and scared, too little to understand why my mom never wanted to be there. Meals were whatever scraps I could dig out of the fridge, stale cereal, sometimes nothing at all. My stomach would ache as I curled up in bed, wondering if maybe I wasn't worth feeding. One memory is burned into me like a scar. I must have been 7. She had some guy over, music blasting while they laughed in the living room. I stood in the kitchen clutching an empty cereal box, whispering, "Mom, I'm hungry." She glanced at me, annoyed, and snapped, "Go to bed, Sophie." The man chuckled like it was funny. I went to my room and cried into my pillow, the sound of her partying drowning out the growl of my stomach. Eventually, child services stepped in. I was removed from her care and given to my dad. He was devastated when he realized what I'd been going through, furious at himself for believing her lies, for not seeing the truth sooner. From that day on, he swore he'd never let me out of his sight again. But my mom? She didn't cry. She didn't fight for me out of love. All she cared about was saving face. She smiled for caseworkers, spun excuses about being overwhelmed, and played the victim. To her, losing custody wasn't about losing me. It was about what the neighbors might whisper, what her friends might think if they knew the truth. And the worst part? She never actually let me cut her off completely. She'd pop back into my life just enough to look like a mother. She'd show up with fake smiles for supervised visits, bring gifts I didn't need, snap a few pictures to prove she was involved. It wasn't for me. It was so she could keep her job, keep her reputation clean, and parade herself to her new circle as a good mom who never abandoned her child. But the truth was always clear. Behind closed doors, I was nothing but an obligation. When she wasn't ignoring me, she was criticizing me. When she wasn't pretending to care, she was reminding me how much of a burden I was. My dad remarried when I was 10, and that's when things finally changed. My stepmom, Julia, didn't just come into my life. She showed up in every way my biological mother never had. Parent-teacher conferences, piano recitals, late-night talks when I was crying over my first heartbreak. She never missed a moment. She became my safe place, my home. So when I got engaged, there was never a question in my mind. I wanted Julia to walk me down the aisle. And that's when my biological mom, let's call her Denise, lost her mind. The phone calls started. Angry, bitter, venomous. "You're spitting in my face after I gave you life. What will people think when they see your stepmom in my place? I'll be damned if I let that woman steal my spotlight."
Spotlight.
That's what it always was with her. Not love. Not me. Just appearances. And then she escalated. She called my aunts and cousins, crying about how I was erasing her from my life. She said she'd show up in a white dress to remind everyone who the real mother is. That was the breaking point. I called her one last time. My hands were shaking as the phone rang. She answered with that syrupy, bitter voice that always made my skin crawl. "Sweetheart," she cooed, "you know deep down I'm your mother. That's my place. You'll regret humiliating me like this." Something inside me snapped. Or maybe, finally it healed. "No," I told her, my voice steady. "Being my mother was a role you gave up years ago. Julia earned it. You didn't. You are no longer welcome at my wedding." For a second, dead silence. Then the shrieking started, her voice screeching through the speaker, calling me ungrateful, cruel. I didn't let her finish. I hung up. I called a venue, updated the guest list, notified security. Denise would not get within 50 feet of my wedding. But the real showdown came sooner, at my rehearsal dinner. My dad convinced me to invite her, thinking maybe she'd behave. She didn't. Denise swept in late, in a white dress, of course. When she spotted Julia beside me, She raised her glass and said, loud enough for the whole room, "To my daughter, who may not always appreciate where she came from. No matter what happens, blood is blood. And no stepmother can erase that." The room went silent. Julia's eyes filled with tears. That's when my fiancé calmly laid a child services report on the table. "This is the truth. Sophie was taken from you for neglect and abandonment. If you want to claim the title of mother, maybe explain why the state had to protect her from you."
Gasps.
Chairs shifted. All eyes turned to Denise. She sputtered, "That's exaggerated. Lies." And I finally stood. My whole body shook, but my voice was steady.
No.
"Stop pretending. Stop twisting. I remember waiting by the window for you to come home. I remember going to bed hungry because you couldn't be bothered to feed me. I remember begging you for cereal while you laughed with your boyfriend. You weren't my mother. You were just the woman who gave birth to me." Denise froze. "You talk about blood like it means something. But blood never raised me. Blood never showed up when I needed her. Julia did. She earned the title you threw away. You don't get to play mother anymore."
Not now.
"Not ever." Gasps filled the room. My stepmom cried silently, my dad's fists clenched in fury, but his eyes were shining with pride. And then I delivered the line that freed me. "So take your spotlight, Denise, and choke on it." Her face crumpled. She screamed, stormed out, heels clacking against the floor. And just like that, her power over me shattered. When I told Julia later, she cried. She whispered, "I never wanted to replace your mom. I only wanted to love you." And I told her the truth. You did replace her, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So on my wedding day, when the music swells and the doors open, Julia will be the one walking me down the aisle. Not because of DNA, not because of tradition, but because she is my real mother in every way that matters. Meanwhile, Denise will sit at home, stewing in the mess she made, stripped of the spotlight she tried to steal. And you know what? That feels like the sweetest gift I could give myself. Peace. Because this wedding isn't about who gave me life. It's about who taught me how to live it.